Hello everyone, my name is Rexy, and welcome to this leg of the Pokémon Maralocke, covering the second half of Generation 5. The Maralocke has a Nuzlocke of the 32 mainline games in release order. The standard Nuzlocke rules when play, plus no overleveling past the gym leader's ace, and the speeches I use in the Hall of Fame can't be used again. That means I can't reuse anything that got into the Hall of Fame up to this point. Check out the playlist to see where everything stands so far. Thanks to the expansion of the Unova Pokédex, these games gave me 98 final evolutions to work with. Again, this doesn't include legendaries, and normally it includes split evolutions, but Glaceon is locked behind post-game, so that rule won't apply here. The issues with late-game evolutions from those native to the region still apply, but the champion's ace is higher than the final level capped on the previous two legs. Despite this, Swirless still can't evolve into its final form. With the largest encounter pull so far, all I had to focus on was making sure I had an answer to everything in front of me. And since there was still Remix and Horn and Sinnoh to go through, I still had to be mindful of what I'll use during endgame. Additionally, I play with a soft Jupe's claws. If we have his Pokédex entry, I don't catch it. But that does mean catching more than one of an evolutionary line. The coverage for this video is on Pokemon Black 2 and White 2. This is the only time ever that a Pokemon region got a mainline second story arc without putting the player in another region first. Everything that marks Gen 5, like the experience curve, repeatable TMs, the cinematic story pacing, tactical loadouts, and the season cycle are all here, but under a completely different structure and coat of paint. In the context of these two runs, both of them started off during the summer, and in my hometown of Aspertia City, some wandering Bianca lady wants to give me a Pokemon friend from out of nowhere. Both of these games once again chose a different starter, going from a Coastal the Oshawott and Captain the Snivy, and both immediately picked a fight with my friend Hugh and came out on top. I then got loaded with some Pokeballs and a pair of running shoes, then I went out of town and learned how to catch Pokemon. Bianca, you're working for Professor Juniper now. Why have you not completed the Pokedex yet? Here on Route 19, Black 2's first encounter was Fuyuhiko the Purloin, and this dumb cat is still the worst thing you can get before the first badge. Not like it matters since my encounter is literally a coin flip. White 2 got the other side of a coin, with a Patrat that got named Tom Nook. I briefly met this older guy on the outskirts of Flockety Town, who I'm more than surprised didn't get rushed to hospital with that jump. And I thought I was the village idiot, but I digress. Next up was Route 20, where the squads got the Swaddle pair Junko and Sable. And at Flockety Ranch to the north, Black 2 met Chiaki the Lillipup, who could have been a pickup meal, but instead had Vital Spirit. And as established last time, Intimidate will make her more suited for the battlefield. White 2 took on Lottie the Azurill. Huge power is by far the better ability for this line, but she ended up with thick fat, so her playstyle will be more defensive when the time calls. But look at that cute little mouse! Of course, White 2 had to give her a huge case of Stockholm Syndrome, making her happy enough to evolve into a Meryl and get access to a better move loadout, as well as Water-type Stab. She's bounced Watergon and Hugh's Tepig when fighting him at the ranch, while Junko did the same with Bug Bite on his Snivy for Black 2. While out there, I learned that Team Plasma were alive and kicking while looking for some farmer's lost dog, and Older told me about a gym leader that settled into the trainer school back home at Aspertia. Here in the playground, I saw that leader was a young man named Charon doing his first day on the job as a normal-type gym leader, but that should never mean his first challenger should go easy on him. Junko went solo for Black 2, opening with a 2-hit Bug Bite on the Patrat, but she got speed-tied with a Lillipup and ended up in crit range after one workup and a tackle. I should have used Speedy Chiaki rather than kept going with Junko, but she didn't get crit, and another Bug Bite brought it down. In White 2, Tom Nook started well against his own Patrat, Red workup useless with a tackle 2-shot. Then there was the Lillipup, and both fighters exchanged 2 tackles each. While Charon healed with a potion, I brought out Sable to tank 2 more tackles and finish it off with a pair of Bug Bites. I took on Bianca's advice to visit another Pokemon gym over at Fairbank City, and as soon as I got there, I saw a sailor aspiring to be a movie star and the local gym leader Roxy aspiring to be a musician. I didn't think this would lead to a toxic relationship, but here we are. The nearby Vivian Complex had all sorts of awesome encounters out there, but Black 2 just happened to end up with a mere Pidove. And that's how the squad met Sonia Nevermind. White 2 had much better luck and secured a Magnemite named Rover, and being a Steel type is a fantastic advantage for the next badge. A handful of evolutions also happened here, with Chiaki becoming an Intimidate-wielding Herdier, Lottie evolving into her early final forms as a Azumarill, and the 2 starters reaching their next forms as Servine and Duwatts. So I guess Black 2 had a thrown-together team for Roxy's poison types, but the squad still fought with all they got. Chiaki led with a high-roll takedown on the Coughing, so I thought a tackle would finish it off, but it didn't. Roxy used a potion, in, and Chiaki kept using tackles while the coughing spammed assurance. And that helium balloon went down in due time. Sonia debuted in style with a crit air cutter, bringing the Whirlipede down into the red. She held on against a pursuit for some reason, then finished it off with a quick attack. And Rover trivialized everything for White 2. It stuck out the coughing with 2 Thundershocks, then continued to spam it on the Whirlipede, which could only deal damage with pursuit. Roxy tried to stall the fight with a super potion as well, but there was nothing she could do, and eventually that bug took a zap too many. I briefly went down the same movie star gauntlet that Macaulay Culkin got forced to endure in the 90s, then returned to town to see more Team Plasma Grunts hanging around the harbour. Yuso wants to pursue them, and so we did, going across the estuary all the way to Castelia City. Also, I didn't know Roxy's sailor dad had a rival of his own. I checked out the local gym, but learned that local leader Berg wasn't there, and some wandering Irish lady pointed me in the direction of the city sewers. So Hugh and I went down there and searched for any further clues. Black 2 took on Mahira the Zubat, and White 2 met Label the Grimer, both finally filling up the initial rosters of 6. We pushed aside more Team Plasma Grunts and finally found Berg deeper in, meaning he was ready to await my challenge at the gym. But the squad still had more work to do. Up north was the Relic Passage, where Black 2 took on Kazuichi the Timber and immediately benched Mahira, while White 2 begrudgingly found a Rattata that's got named Rossetti. And like his namesake, resetting is something you should never do in a Nuzlocke. The squad's also hit listed every trainer within the vicinity, and that was when they learned that a certain breeder would flag you down every time you pass by, challenging you to a battle every time. I'm not using you to grind, I still have work to do! And after a good chunk of work, Puyuhiko evolved into a Liepard, Sonia got to her next form as a Tranquil, Tom Nook became a Watchog, and the Swaddle duo used a combination of level-ups and friendship to reach their final form as a Leavanny duo. That kind of muscle was what we needed against Berg and his bug types. Black 2 opened with Sonia and a straight air Kudoroko on the Swadloon. Murikut Kazuichi tanked 3 uses of Smackdown from the Dwebble and smacked back with 3 wake-up slaps. The Leavanny was faster than Sonia and attacked with a cut, but she landed another air cutter one-shot to seal the W. Then there's White 2. Label Sludge landed a crit on the first turn and merely put the Swadloon in red HP, prompting Berg to heal with a potion and 3 more normal Sludges to follow suit. But it only folds back with Razor Leaf anyway, and she had some leftovers on her to soften the impact. Ripple was next. Lottie's Bubble Beam obviously didn't kill because of Sturdy, and its own efforts were a rock polish into a Smackdown, which did a mere blemish back. Once that pebble was washed away, it was time for the Leavanny, and thankfully for us, Label's first Sludge poisoned it. With more spam of that move, Label eventually took it out and secured the 3rd badge. Also, why does this stupid breeder leave me alone? I met this colorist guy when leaving town, and he used a funny-looking machine to move some crustle away from the road. He then challenged the squads to a battle, using a pair of steel types, and Kazuichi had no problems based on his typing and moveset, smashing them so hard that he evolved into a Gurdur in the aftermath. White 2 was at more of a disadvantage, but Label at least had learned Mud Bomb by then. The Magnemite had paralyzed her with Thunder Wave on the first turn, and the Clink took advantage with a charge setup, but she landed a beautiful crit to get out of that fight unscathed. Having seen that issue, the squads learned they needed a ground type deeper in the desert, and the only available option at that point is the Sandshrew, which also doubles as a mini tank all on its own. Black 2 tried to get one at the places where it's available, but it didn't work out. In the desert resorts, the gang took on Toko the Dwebble, and the Relic Castle was the home of Hajime the Yamask. So once again, that's a handy ground type denied. White 2 had better luck, meeting Sahara at the desert resorts there and then. She immediately joined the squad, and equally as quickly evolved into a Sandslash via level up. The useful encounters continued past Nimbasa City and over its Lost Lawn Forest, where Black 2 grabbed another grass type in Nagito the Cottony, and White 2 continued the usefulness streak with Mabel the Pincer. Back in the city itself, the Pokemon musical shenanigans still meant nothing, but White 2 was still in the mood for a dress-up session and decided to overload Rover just for fun. I also learned Elisa had enough of her budget to change her appearance and the location of her own gym. If I had known to be walking down a catwalk, I'd have packed an outfit change. But the team still did necessary preparation work, with Rover evolving into a Magneton and Kazuichi becoming a Conkeldurr via trade. Going against Elisa without ground types sounded like a recipe for disaster, but at least her Emolga had forgotten Aeolate in the past 2 years. That's made it safe for Junko to lead in Black 2. She fought with Slash, but his static ability paralyzed her. After some pursuit spam, Emolga ran a Volt Switch into Zebstrika and directed Slash to that instead. I brought in Kazuichi on a Flame Charge, tanking that in a pursuit and knocking it out with a Wake-Up Slap. That same move could have been a 2-shot on the Flaffy, but it paralyzed with Thunder Wave and used Volt Switch to let Emolga take the second attack. Chiaki went in on a healing turn. Emolga did a Volt Switch back into Flaffy, which went down to Chiaki's strength. Emolga had nothing left to Volt Switch into, but strength triggered static and got Chiaki paralyzed as well. With half my team paralyzed, I then went into free Hiko, the Yakuza cat. After tanking a Volt Switch, he finished off the Emolga with a fake out and a pursuit in quick succession. Sahara went solo for White 2. She started well with Slash Bam on the Emolga, but its static ability got her paralyzed too. Pursuit and quick attack still meant nothing to her, so she finished it and kept going. Flaffy could only fight with Takedown, but it still went down to 2 middling magnitude rolls. Zebstrika tried with a crit pursuit, but that fell to a magnitude level 9! I still should have bought an outfit change just for this catwalk. On the way out of the city, we scuffled with more Team Plasma grunts, and I learned that Hugh is on this journey to look for a stolen cat. Of all the reasons to become a trainer, you had to pick the softest one, didn't you? Either way, the journey took us to Driftvale City, where we learned that Team Plasma had actually broken in half. One half being the thieves in the black clothes that Hugh kept picking fights over, and the other in the white threads that genuinely wanted to save Pokemon and began to make a modest living. After stocking up on Moo Moo Milk, the squads checked out Chargestone Cave to the north of town, which didn't get blocked off with another spider web since last time. Black 2 ran into a Ferroseed, which looks harmless enough for Sonya to weaken, but then it killed her with a crit Gyro Ball! I know the move damages more if slower than the target, but I still wasn't expecting that. Ultimately, Mondo got caught and dumped in the box. White 2 ended up meeting KK the Clink, and while useless for the gym ahead, it can be a handy one to have during late game. And it was while inside this cave that Rover absorbed the electric currents and evolved into a Magnezone. To fill the dead spot in Black 2, my hero evolved all the way into a Crobat, and everything else mostly stayed the same, though Chiaki had reached her final form as a Stoutsland. Once again, dealing with Clay's ground-type moves in a normal playthrough would be tricky due to the wide dual-type coverage on his team, but both squads gave it their all. In Black 2, McCorso ran a straight all-core Water Pulse through both the Krokorok and Sandslash, but Excadrill was faster, landed a critical hit slash that put him in Torrent range, and yes, that still wasn't enough for a Water Pulse one-shot. Rather than risk Aqua Jet not quite finishing it, I switched into Kazuichi, who tanked a Rock Slide on the switch. A Rock Slide missed later, and he sealed the fight with a Wake-Up Slap. For White 2, Kappen suffered the effects of Krokorok's Intimidate, as his Leaf Blade couldn't Oko, and Bulldoze got the speed drop. After a Hyper Potion heal, he went for 2 Mega Drain attacks to get some health recovery while also tanking a Crunch. Lottie handled the Sandslash with 2 Bubble Beams while tanking its Rollout Assault. Sahara was slower than the Excadrill, and it got a Metal Claw attack boost, but she once again ran a Magnitude level 9 to take it out in one go! After trialing Clay's Pokemon World Tournament project, a distraction led me to the same funny boats I saw at Castelia. And as it turned out, it's a mobile team for Team Plasma, and a freezing cold one at that! This Insling guy has been calling the shots and aimed to use a dragon Pokemon to control Unova. A bad idea, considering I kept one from the previous Unova journey and someone else kept another. But he didn't like that, so I got shoved off while he continued his brainstorming or whatever. I met Chairman again at the Weather Institute on Route 6, where he gave me the Surf HM, and I immediately used it to get an encounter at Mistleton Cave. Black 2 took in a little Axew named Akane, and White 2 met Joe and the Bulldor. Both of them stayed in the box for when the time was right. Black 2 then went back to Chargestone Cave again, but White 2 backtracked to the PWT, which had a northern exit into Relic Passage and a tunnel leading to the lower depths of Relic Castle. The team took the chance to go for the static Volcarona, which got caught after a very hard-fought fight. She was named Isabelle and put in the box, since her moveset is sparse and she won't really hit hard until late game. Only then was White 2 able to run through Chargestone Cave themselves and go through the long trainer gauntlet within, including a dose of triple battle pain. The worst part was figuring out who to potentially save for the long run, and it did keep me able to deal with the Kling in the group, but that was the price I paid for death by an unpheasant's air slash. If I had planned this fight more meticulously, I would have prevented this from happening, but that's how it goes. White 2 regrouped back at Driftvale and replaced her with Joan, who immediately was straight evolved into a Gigalith and started being another valuable physical wall for the team. As the other side of the cave was Mistletoe City, where I met Professor Juniper in the middle of a study trip. I learned that she wanted to take her research over to Opaloosa City, but Twist Mountain is currently unsafe, and she had been waiting on a plane here to go a different way. While training outside the city, Label evolved into a muck, and the starters reached their final forms as Samurott and Superior. And the exploration also went as far as Celestial Tower, where Black 2 met Yasuhiro the Litwick and was thankful that it didn't use Memento or anything like that. White 2 took on Gulliver the L-Gem, which got caught with the first critical capture of the entire marathon. But both of those catches are too frail to evolve into anything bulky to do with Skylar's flying types, so the team stayed the same. Hiko opened up fantastically for Black 2, opted for a fake out and assurance to take out the Swoobat. Mac also went up next against the Swanna, but while attacking with Slash, it dropped a Feather Dance and ran a crit air slash past half HP. Not wanting to risk another, I brought in Chiaki, who tanks another air slash and finished it off with Strength. That's left Skarmory. Only Makoto could do some decent work, so I brought him out to fight. Its sturdy ability prevented a crit Surf Oko, and the Hyper Push stopped Aquajet from doing the same thing. Even with agility, Air Cutter brought herself to Torrent range, so one more Surf washed it away. Rover went solo for White 2. Thundershock was only good enough for a 2 HKO on both the Swoobat and Skarmory, and the former even got a Hyper Potion heal to add an extra hit. But aside from Swanna's Bubble Beam, which fell to a single Thundershock due to quad weakness, none of them could do much damage back at all. After the battle, I rode in Skylar's plane to get to Lentimus Town, where the professor encouraged me to take the long way around to the next gym at Opaloosa City and seek more clues about Team Plasma's plan from Old Man Drayden. Before going far into the trek, Black 2 stumbled inside a haunted house with sentient furniture and picked up a Duskstone, which is needed to evolve Yasuhiro into his final form. Outside Reversal Mountain, Black 2 called Kyoko the Trapinch, while White 2 struck gold with Luna the Scorepi, and she turned out to have battle armor, meaning she'll never take a critical hit in a month of Sundays. But the squads remained as they were when going through the intersection of the mountain with Bianca, who was doing some research about some legendary fire Pokémon that resides in Sinnoh or something. However, White 2 wasn't careful in going into battle and triggered a single battle with the trainer that had a Darmanitan. And as we know, sheer force is godly on its own. But with Belly Drum, so overpowering that a single Flare Blitz flat out claims Sahara's life. I know that there were plenty of other chances to use a Sand Slash, but that still stings. At the end of the tunnel was a sunny seaside resort that was Undella Town, but White 2 was feeling a winter of discontent. After burning Sahara, Bolivar got added to the squad and evolved into a Behem, a chance to use a psychic type for the team. But he almost got annihilated against the trainer's Gligar, holding back a crit no-item acrobatics on 1 HP! But after pushing aside Hugh in battle back on the beach, Black 2 immediately faced the same mistake made in White 1, not knowing the Timberline's level up movesets and regrettably losing Junko to a Gerda's Rock Slide. Seriously, why is it not part Rock type again? Is it because it'll be too similar to one of the region's own legendaries? Having gone this far with a second death in, then was the time to officially bring Yasuhiro onto the team, with the combination of level ups and the Duskstone evolving him into a Chandelure. The next stop on the path was Lacunosa Town, where some old lady told us the legend about an ice monster that's put the townsfolk under a permanent curfew. Oh, I wonder if that is what Team Plasma was looking for. Then there was a sort of town in the form of the village bridge, which actually had some trainers to battle, including a basketball player that initiated a triple battle and used 2 Relikid and an Electabuzz. I thought taking care of the latter would soften the impact for the rest of the team, but nope. The 2 Relikid ganged up on Label with Thunder Punch, and one of them even landed a crit! And I thought I could potentially carry a Mark all the way. Say hi to Mabel for me. Filling the spot was Luna, who evolved into a Drapion and was ready to show no mercy with her battle armor. One more stop happened, and that was at Route 11, where Black 2 took on a mare option with Sakura the Zangoose, but White 2 met Red the Gligar, which is a very rare endgame option. Finally, the squads reached Opaloosa City, where I learned that Drayden is Iris's grandpa, but not really her grandpa, and had been awaiting challenges in the local gym. So it seemed like any myth-busting had to wait. Just like last time, he was wielding dragon types, and with the teams that I had, he looked very difficult to crack, but I had a plan. Black 2's most aggressive answer was from Kazuichi, and I had a Toxic Orb in my bag. By pre-poisoning him to activate Guts, he would end up hitting like a freight train. And before long, it was time for Black 2 to put that idea to practice. And it started fantastically, as Kazuichi's Hammer Arm was a straight one-shot of the Druidigan before it could do anything. Flygon was out next, but that reacted first with a crit Earth power, bringing Kazuichi into the red. Hammer Arm took it out, and then the poison brought him down to a not-so-chill 7 HP. I needed another strategy for the Haxorus, so I brought out Chiaki, and I learned that Mold Breaker doesn't remove the effects of Intimidate. Not like it mattered, because all it wanted to do was stack up a Dragon Dance while she pushed through with 3 Strength attacks. In White 2, Luna got cheeky right away and set up 2 layers of Toxic Spikes. She then went all in with Night Slash, while its slashing crunch attacks got met with Rocky Helmet damage. After a potion heal, it got fed up and used Dragon Tail to force a swap into Rover, and it took out the rest of its health with a single Flash Cannon. Up next was Flygon. Kappen held back a crunch to Rock Slide, but 3 Leaf Blades were enough to turn it into Julienne Fries. Haxorus got badly poisoned by the Toxic Spikes on arrival, and thanks to Rover, Mold Breaker against Magnet Pull was never going to work. Despite this, it needed only 2 turns to dispatch it with a Flash Cannon. I should have done 1 layer of Toxic Spikes, but never mind. Drayden had a chat with me after the fight and mentioned something about a 3rd dragon Pokemon named Kyurem and a mysterious set of DNA splices passed down from his ancestors. But not long after hearing his tale, Team Plasma's boat arrived on the scene, and with the ability to fly no less. This then used this giant cannon to completely freeze Opaloosa over, and despite our best efforts, they stole the DNA splices. How did they know they were here? Did they have ears the size of Mount Moon? Looking for us, Charon showed up. He must have had a weather app open or something, because he told me about a hefty temperature drop near Humilau City to the east. And so I went there in style, going back to Wandella Town and taking a gorgeous underwater tube that would make all aquariums green with envy. Q was kind enough to let me challenge the local gym leader first, so it was time for me to wash over Marlon's water types. In Black 2, Kazuichi went first against Caracosta, and Low Kick immediately put it in Hyper Potion range. But a single smell sash meant it was a smell sash? Ugh, I feel so unclean. But a single Shell Smash meant it was able to outspeed on the next turn it was able to fight thanks to Sturdy, pushing a Skull that could have killed if it crit! Thankfully it fell to another Low Kick. Makoto went against the Wailord, and then I faced another moment of hindsight when it only fought with Bounce. So it would have been nice to have a move like Revenge for its landing. But 3 X's with some Rocky Helmet recoil was still good enough. Finally, Jellicent. I should have equipped Fuyuhiko with the Expert Pelt for a clean Night Slash Oko instead of the Shell Bell, but Scald was never going to crit Oko anyway, so he spooked away that watery ghost. For White 2, Kappen Upper was strength for the Caracosta to disable Sturdy, and 1 crunch back later, a Leaf Blade took out the rest of its health. He handled the Wailord in the same way, albeit with a Hyper Potion heal that didn't even fill up the entire health bar. Nice base HP, Wailord. I then let Rover have some fun against the Jellicent, having learned Discharge just before the start of the battle. However, it didn't quite take out all of its health, Cursed Body activated, and Scald burned it! Meaning Spark wouldn't take out the rest of its health either. So I brought in Luna while it's up to use a cover, and she dealt a crit Night Slash from full health. And so that's 8 gym matches. Normally I challenge the Pokemon League, but Hugh still wanted me to save Unova from being a giant popsicle if I'm to enjoy any amount of time as a champion. Together, we stormed Team Plasma's funny-looking pirate ship, only to discover they captured Kyurem and used its ice-type powers to terrorize all of Unova. Sure, we got thrown off the boat, but then we managed to find our way back on at the giant chasm. We managed to reach the control room and went face-to-face with Zinzalin for the final time. Yasuhiro was out to fight first for Black 2, but he got frozen from an ice beam before doing anything. And guess what? So did Kazuichi when going in for an attack himself! Thankfully, Makoto shrugged off the cold and dispatched it with a combination of Surf, Aquajet, and Rocky Helmet chip. The same story could have been said for the second Cryogonal, but it set up a light screen, so no Rocky Helmet chip for you. As for the Weevil, he held back a Night Slash and ran an X-Scissor Oko on it. Kappen accidentally led for White 2, so I immediately tagged in Lottie while it went for a Reflex setup. She spammed Surf while it used Slash in return, and that went down in 4 hits. When the second Cryogonal went out, Reflect had gone, so after Light Screen nerfed her Surf, she resorted to Aqua Tail instead for the knockout blow. And then the Weavile went in and brought a non-crit Night Slash into 3 HP! But she still smashed it into pieces with a single superpower. With him out of the way, we went further in and learned that Colress is part of Team Plasma, all for the sake of his research. Whose side you on, dude? Well, the squads went toe-to-toe against him for nothing more than mere science. In Black 2, Yasuhiro opted to redeem himself. He used Flame Burst on the Magneton, which held it back thanks to Sturdy, and used Volt Switch to pivot into Metang, which didn't even survive from a single Flame Burst itself. Next up was Clink Clank. A low-roll Flame Burst popped his air balloon, and after getting healed with a full restore, a higher roll melted it there and then. Fuyuhiko ran a Fake Out and Night Slash combo on the Behemoth. Kazuichi stepped out against the Magnezone, and Paralysis from Thunderwave activated Guts. hits. But sturdy meant it still took 2 low kicks before falling, while he tanked a flash cannon along the way. That's left his measly Magneton again, which Chiaki nibbled away with a reversal. By no one's surprise, White 2 had a harder fight. Magneton used Volt Switch right away, so the opening Shadow Ball from Gulliver was instead used on the Magnezone. So I then made it an honor battle with Rover, while also forgetting Magnet's pull as a thing. Nevertheless, it pushed with Spark and that retaliated back with Discharge, and in due time they paralyzed each other. As it became a stalling game, I went to use the Moo Milk, but then it offed itself with Explosion. So else went Luna against the Kling Clang. She popped its air balloon during a Night Slash Bam, while it in return set up with 3 uses of Shift Gears. And the following Giga Impact brought her down to just 4 HP. But she followed up with another Night Slash crit to finish it. Lottie went against the Batang and ran Surf twice, with the second one landed a crit. It did use agility into Zen Headbutt, but it didn't get the flinch. Then it was Rover versus the Behem. Once it started setting up with Calm Mind, I switched offense from Discharge to Spark. Despite the offense, it kept using Recover for healing despite the paralysis. And when Psychic brought Rover's health into the red, I had to switch to the Kappen in the hopes of a clean finish. But no! Colress used a full restore and another Calm Mind boosted Psychic also brought Kappen's health into the red. But he was faster, so an overgrown boosted Leaf Blade sliced it cleanly. Finally, the Magneton. Gulliver went back out, but he got paralyzed from Thunder Wave right away. So in between Shadow Ball spam, he got 3 Moo Milk heals after dealing with Magneton's own attacks. But it went down eventually. Colress grabbed me access to the captain's office, and oh look, it's old man Getsus. He was controlling things behind the scenes so that he could take all the glory when Universe frozen over. Oh, and Hugh got the stupid cat back. Go through a parade or something. I chased Getsus out of the boat and into a cave, where he brought Kyurem with him and he tried to put me into permanent cryosleep. But there he was! N had swooped into the rescue. But as much as I appreciated his help, Getsus loaded the DNA Ice Blasters onto Kyurem and used them to trap Zekrom in Black 2 and Reshiram in White 2, transforming it respectively into Black Kyurem and White Kyurem. So the squads had 2 reasons to fight now. Obviously, the first job was to separate N's partner from Kyurem's body, which Kazuichi and Joan handled with no issues. Both were slower and had to be mindful of the attacks chosen, and Stroll missing a rock slide didn't help matters, but at least it fell under the weight of those stones before setting off an ice burn. That immediately followed up with a battle against a very peeved Getsus. I opted to swap in Free Hiko against the Cofagrigus, and that immediately reacted with Toxic. Despite this, Free Hiko went through the spooky casket with 2 Night Slashes, only having to deal with the occasional Shadow Ball and getting some health recovery from its Shell Bell. Drippy was next and Kazuichi went back out. He held back 2 Earthquakes while he went through it with 2 uses of Hammer-On. Chiaki went against the Electros, which just wanted to use Acrobatics despite the intermittent attack drop. Getsus used a full restore during her assault, which was 5 uses of Strength. Yasuhiro took out the Seismitoad with a 1-shot Energy Ball. Mahira stepped in for the Toxicroak and used Acrobatics twice for the kill, nearly having to hold back a Shadow Ball. Finally, I Drygon. Even though my squad was 2 levels higher, it had an immediate advantage with holding a Life Orb. I had Makoto out, who held on against the Dragon Rush, but X-Scissor was not enough for the 1-shot. I needed to switch into a faster teammate, but had to sacrifice someone first, and that job fell on Mahiru. But Dragon Rush missed! And so she went in with an X-Scissor and dispatched the last of that nasty dragon's health. White 2 immediately tagged in Rover against Cofagrigus, denying Toxic in the process. It went on to run a Flash Cannon 2 HKO while melee tanking a Shadow Ball. Kappen took out the Seismitoad with a single Leaf Blade. John ran a Rock Slide into the Electros, but faced hefty damage from Thunderbolt. Hitting a crit on the next turn, I brought Kappen in to tank another one, then let him finish it off with a Leaf Blade. Drapion was up next, and it had a wide move pool with something super effective against everyone, but not Lottie. Unfortunately, Surf couldn't do half damage, she was slower, and the Sniper boosted Night Slash brought her health down to 1/3. At the very least, Luna was faster and could render Sniper useless thanks to battle armor. That meant a super effective Earthquake would be shy of taking out half of her health. She let loose with X-Scissor and used 2 Moo Milks while out on the field, while Getsus in return used his full restore on his own. And after the X-Scissor, there was High Drygon. I heals Luna again, but with a Hyper Potion this time, and Rock Slide missed! X-Scissor was a 2-shot, and that was combined with the Life Orb boosted Dragon Rush and Rocky Helmet's recoil. Last but not least, Toxicroak. I thought it was open with Sucker Punch against Gulliver, but it used Brick Break for no reason at all, meaning the Oko Psychic put an end to Getsus' maniacal dream. Yeah, we had saved the world. The Shadow Triad went and took Getsus to a therapist, and N happily flew away with his dragon partner. Now it's time to go to the league! With Route 10 supposedly blocked off from a landslide, I instead exited the cavern to the west onto Route 23. And before long, I reached the coolest looking league gates I had ever seen, with laser technology that detects each individual badge. Like last time, Victory Road has some dangerous trainers in there, but with a bag full of Moo milk, I was fine to keep healing when needed. Though, White 2 faced issues against the trainer's Lilligant. I felt for sure that it wouldn't touch Luna, so I hoped to get in a Poison Fang 2-shot, but one use of Quiver Dance, and it was already fast enough and strong enough to kill her before she could get the chance. I guess she's forever staying at the Dream Suite then. But since this is the last stretch, then was the time to finally make Isabelle part of the team. She got loaded up with some useful TMs, then started becoming a powerful asset. Right at the top of the climb was Hugh once again, who was up for one more battle mere steps away from the league entrance. McCulsell led the charge for Black 2. Unfezant used U-turn into Buffalont, redirecting Surf. He tried for a flinch on Waterfall next, but that didn't trigger, and he endured a reckless boosted head smash, which knocked itself out with a combination of recoil damage and Rocky Helmet chip. Kazuichi held back against her previous Giga Drain twice and smashed it with 2 hammer arm attacks. He stayed in for the Unfezant for some dumb reason, tanked an aerial ace in red HP, and finished it off with a Stone Edge. I also stupidly kept him in against the Simisear, which I rectified with switching in Mahiru on a Brick Break. She went in for a Fly 2-shot while tanking a hefty Flamethrower. For White 2, Rover held back a Crit Facade while taking out the Unpheasant with a single discharge. John went in for the Buffalont and held back an Earthquake, and Rock Slide missed! I needed help from other members, so Cap attacked an Earthquake, pushed as much as possible with Leaf Blade, then held back a non-crit Mega Horn into red HP. Rather than risking Overgrow not working out, I went into Isabelle, who tanked a Mega Horn and survived a reckless boosted head charge on 2 HP. Once again, with that stupid cow exhausting itself. Kappa returned for the Simi-Paw and took it out with a single Leaf Blade. And our little star Lottie ran a Surf 2-shot to the Ember while tanking a Brick Break, securing her retirement in style. I think you know the drill by now. Lottie had been with the team before I got my first badge and had been amazingly valuable with her contributions. She gained so much attachment throughout, but I had to think more objectively. The Marrow line had kept getting better in every generation, so I had to bench her in order to use more of her species. Joining her on the bench were Rover and Mahiru, both for the same reason as needing more of their lines in later legs. Before long, the squads reached the Pokemon League and did the necessary substitutions. Black 2 targeted Akane and devolved her into a Haxorus, while White 2 brought over Red, evolving him into a Gliscor after finding a Razorfang somewhere, and KK, becoming a Clang after more level-ups. Once again, with the way the experience curve was mapped out, I had to grind at earlier routes to fill up the rest of any EVs that I would need. Money has been precious, but once everyone got a build, was up to the same level as all 4 aces, and in Kazuichi's case, pre-poisoned to activate Guts, it was on to endgame, and this time it is the Elite Four. Like last time, the squads could pick whatever order they wanted, but both teams almost went the same way, although their first and second fights were swapped over. Black 2 began the challenge with Ghost Trainer Chantal and led with 3 Hiko against a Cofagrigus. He went first with a Night Slash 2-shot, tanking a Shadow Ball along the way. Makoto handled the Golurk with a crit Waterfall from out of nowhere. 3 Hiko went back against the Drifblim, though Night Slash couldn't one-shot it, and so she wasted her full restore here. A Night Slash high roll later and it was down, with damage from Thunderbolt in its Aftermath ability, and some restored from the Shell Bell. And from Chandelure, I saw that Yasuhiro had a slightly higher speed stat, so I took advantage of that and let him one-shot that lamp with a Shadow Ball. She was White 2's second opponent. Red went up first and held Night Slash attacks on the Cofagrigus, while also dodging Will-O-Wisp twice in a row. It did get a full restore heal, and then on the third attempt, the Will-O-Wisp indeed connected. Even with the burn, it was still enough for one more Night Slash to take out the rest of its health. Next was Chandelure, the one I was most nervous about. John tanked an Energy Ball even without needing the effects of Sturdy, and she dropped a Rock Slide for the one-shot. Cap'n went up against the Golurk and used 2 Giga Drains to take it out, all while taking a Shadow Punch. And then we have Drifblim. Yes, Keiki got the kill with a single Wild Charge, but recoil damage from that and the effects of Aftermath brought its HP down to a third. White 2's actual first opponent was Grimsley and his Dark types. And for the rest of the fights ahead, Black 2 swapped around Makoto and Akane's held items. Our Gymnast Dragon led against the Liepard. Predictably, it used Fake Out on turn 1 and lost health by a Rocky Helmet recoil. A follow-up low kick knocked it out very quickly. For Crocodile, Makoto went out and ran a Surf while it struck hard with an Earthquake. It was left with a Sliver, forcing Grimsley to heal, but Surf high rolled on the following turn and washed it over. Up came Scrafty, and so was Guts boosted Kazuichi, dropping a Hammer Armor core before it could do anything. everything. For the Bisharp, I brought Akane back in, and she went in with a single low kick. In White 2, Isabelle also faced Liepard's fake out, but Flame Body activated and the stupid cat got a burn. Not like it mattered, as Silverwind took out the rest of its health. Red went up against Crafty, and because he had a Rocky helmet, he had to use acrobatics twice to dispatch it. And this old brick break bringing in damage from merely touching the helmet added salt to the wound. Cappen's Giga Drain couldn't one-shot the crocodile, so after healing with a full restore, 2 more of his moves were enough to finish it. Finally, Isabelle turned Bisharp into liquid metal with a single flamethrower. The squads took a parallel path from here on out, facing Caitlyn's Psychic types third in line. Black 2 sent Yasuhiro out against a Musharna. A single Shadow Ball wasn't enough to walk it through both the first attempt and the turn after the full restore heal, and thanks to Yon, he got put to sleep. Fuyuhiko went in to block Dream Eater and used Fake Outs for the finish. Makoto plowed through the Reuniclus with a beautiful crit X-Scissor. Fuyuhiko went in for the Gothitelle. He dispatched it with a Fake Out and 2 Night Slashes but tanked Thunderbolt. Then a Sigalip and Chiaki had her time to shine. She ran through it with a Wild Charge, held on against Psychic, then finished it off with a Crunch. Gulliver led the charge for White 2. In hindsight, I should have equipped the spell tag here because 2 Shadow Balls weren't enough to dispatch the Musharna, and Yon puts him to sleep too! So I built in Red on a full restore turn, and he ran a Night Slash 2-shot, including a crit somewhere. All that, and he too got hit with a yawn and fell asleep upon dealing the final blow. For Sigalith, KK stepped in and rammed an opening Wild Charge against it, while tanking a Psychic back. On the second turn, this speed-side Patent Bird went first with another Psychic, while KK's Thunderbolt finished it. Isabelle handled the Reuniclus and Gothitelle, but in hindsight I should have given her Silver Powder back. The Reuniclus was no problem thanks to a Silverwind 2-HKO and the only retaliation being a Psychic back. But Gothitelle set up a Calm Mind, meaning after the last use of Silverwind, it was down to a mere pixel of red HP. A Flamethrower handled the rest, she led Quiver Dance at level 59, and she was ready to be unstoppable. But I couldn't rely on any bug action against Marshall's fighting team. When figuring out a plan, Red got given the Flying Gem and his Rocky helmet got passed over to Joan. In Black 2, Kazuichi stepped up first against Throw. A Guts boosted Hammer Arm wasn't enough to take it down at first, so a Chip Away and another Hammer Arm after a full restore heal secured it. He did get hurt from poison damage, a Rock Tomb, and a Storm Throw. Yasuhiro went in for Mienshao. However, it was definitely faster and landed a bounce. Thankfully, there was no paralysis, so he was able to lay down an Expert's Belt boosted Psychic Oko. Akane went out for the Conkeldurr out a few retaliates, but it went for a bulk up while she went for Aerial Ace chip damage. I bolted Makoto and he held on against a Hammer Arm. The damage brought him into Torrent range, and our ultimate lucky students followed it up with a Surf Crit to take down the rest of its health. Last but not least was Sok, but I wasn't at all worried. Akane's Aerial Ace took its health to over half, and her opponents made it worse with a Payback bounced back from the Rocky helmets. Another Aerial Ace finished the job. Gulliver went first for White 2, held back against a Payback from Throw, and used a Twisted Spoon boosted Psychic to give it a mental breakdown. Red went up against the Mienshao, and this is a whole load of punishment all at once. Going first with a Flying Gem boosted Acrobatics that also landed a crit. He also used Acrobatics twice against the Conkeldurr. I did fear Retaliate again, but it still opted for bulk up to no avail. And last but not least was the Sok. Kappen ripped through it with 2 Leaf Blades, all while holding back a Payback. One more fight remained, and that was the champion, Iris, former Ruleset gym leader and the young girl that helped us twice on this journey. And her team was stacked with some heavyweights, so I needed a plan in place. With the rare candies found throughout the journey, the squad got bumped up to level 59 for the fight ahead. And in White 2, Isabelle received the Silver Powder for a recently replenished Silverwind PP, while Kappen obtained the Expert's Belt. The battle began. Black 2's opener against her illegal High Dragon was freaking guts-boosted Kazuichi. He held back a Dragon Pulse and retaliated with an Oko Hammer Arm. Sheer Force Dragon with a Life Orb sounded scary, but it was no issue for Akane as she went first with a straight Dragon Claw Oko. Then it was Chiaki versus Lapras. She rammed through that pile of ice with 2 Wild Charges, holding back against a Surf while doing so. Makoto went in for Aggron, which thankfully didn't have Sturdy. No crit this time, but Surf still got the 1-shot. Her own Haxorus stepped up, but amazingly, Akane was naturally faster. Dragon Claw activated its Focus Sash, but it only tried a Dragon Dance setup. So after a potion heal, another Dragon Claw brought that monster down. Last but not least was Archeops. It was faster than Makoto and used a Rock Slide, but no flinching meant he got the 1-shot with Surf. In White 2, Isabelle Silverwind couldn't 1-shot the High Dragon, yet she tanked a Surf, Iris used the Full Restore, and 2 more Silverwinds pulled it under. Red ran 3 Ice Fangs through the Druidigan and tanked 2 uses of Flamethrower. KK used 2 Wild Charges against the Lapras, though the recoil damage combined with Surf brought it down to red HP. Aggron was wasn't as simple though. I brought out Cap'n and mistakenly clicked Leaf Blade while knowing it's physically tanky. 2 uses of Giga Drain finished it, while it retaliated with Double Edge. Then there was Haxorus. Cap'n took out over half of its health with an Expert Belt boosted Dragon Pulse. But it used a Dragon Dance and killed Cap'n with an X-Scissor the following turn! Oh crap. I decided that playtime was over and brought out John. She attacked an Earthquake on 9 HP, then used Explosion to take out the rest of his health while also removing the remainder of hers. Thanks for everything, Crazy Turnip Lady. And once again, she ended with Archeops. Gulliver stepped out with the intent to Thunderbolt it, but Rock Slide hit a flinch and took out a huge chunk of his health. Time for plan B. With regret, I healed Red with a Moo Milk and let Gulliver die on another Rock Slide. And an unnecessary crit at that. Red didn't get the Rock Slide flinch, but he did suffer a crit, and a Night Slash wasn't enough. So I had to sacrifice again. KK got a Hyper Potion heal, and Red died to Acrobatics. KK faced 1 Rock Slide flinch, but on the following turn, it landed a Wild Charge and took out the rest of Archeops' health, securing victory. And just like that, Nuzlockes were completed in Black 2 and White 2. This was an insane final gauntlet that needed everyone to show their strengths, and White 2 had a crazy run where Isabelle and KK were the only survivors. Facing 2 deaths in triple battles made me learn to cite trainer documentation more, and that was the plan I had going forward in future legs. We'll be saying bonjour to Kalos next time. I'll catch you in the next installment where I take on X and Y, so subscribe to see the next video as it goes live. For now, Rexy out. Thanks for watching, and never hit the reset button no matter what!